Hello, everyone. Hi. Uh, well, it's great to see everyone here. I'm excited to be here with you and Rene to talk about his book just came out. Very important book, Seeing Us. You have to get a copy of this, huge book, which includes more than 500 pictures made over 52 years, right?
Yeah, pretty much
You
50.
know,
Well, you've 55. You've just cut 3 years off my
Okay.
age, but
All right.
that's fine.
It's an incredible, amount of work. He, put it together. So, I wanted to have a conversation with you tonight. How did you make this book, first of all, and then let's take a look at maybe 30, 35 pictures from this book.
Okay.
Uh, by the way, because no one knows who I am, perhaps I'm the new director of Asia Society Museum. I was formerly senior curator of international photography at the Tate Modern Galleries for the last 5 years. So I moved back to New York just a couple months ago. So I'm very honored to take this role. So, thank you.
We grabbed you off at
Okay.
the airport, right off the plane,
That's
right
true.
away. So
Yes. So maybe we can start, with what you were so excited about as a teenager, and we can probably go back to the Montreal in 1967.
Yeah. So in 1967 was Expo 67, which right there. And what was notable about Expo 67 is it was really an exposition of images. The National Film Board of Canada had its own pavilion with films. There was a very important exhibition of photographs from the top photographers of the previous 50 years, from 1967, this exhibit. And if you go back just to so this is a official photograph by the Expo 67 committee, and you can see it's very nice. And, these were my photographs at the time with a Brownie camera, and you can see I had no idea what I was doing.
I mean, you're
But
perhaps like 12 or 13.
yeah, I was 12 or 13 with a Brownie camera. But I came out of Expo 67 wanting to make images. I was just taken by the photography, by film, and it was kind of the precursor or maybe an early call from the Instagram generation. I think it's kind of started there, and I know there were others, friends who went to Expo and had the same reaction, and we all wanted to get into film or photography.
I mean, it was, I think, first exposition, perhaps, which focused on the usage of the, multiple television screens, for example, and
Yes.
very elaborate sort of like, installations of photographs and moving images,
Mhm.
right? And one of the exhibitions you saw there was this one.
Yes.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about this exhibition.
Well, it was arranged. It was mostly photographs of people. It was arranged, as it says, it's cameras witness, and what it says is in French, regard sur la terre des hommes. It's really as a witness to the world of it's 67, so it's a little politically incorrect. It says, man's world, but it's sort of a look at humanity. And the exhibit was divided into categories of children, or affection in terms of human emotions, poverty, etc. And it was a very humanistic exhibit, and it was curated by Yusuf Karsh and other notable people from the world of photography, and it literally had photographs from all the top photographers of the previous 50 years, Cartier-Bresson, Robert Capa, Werner Bischoff, Dorothea Lange, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it just, I get a little choked up even thinking about, being 13 and seeing these images and being very taken by the power and the possibilities of an image.
Yeah, I think this show, I remember seeing the catalog, as a matter of fact. I think, it was based on, earlier exhibitions of, Family of Man.
Yes.
Right? Which
At
took place at the
Mocha, was it?
Museum Modern Art in
Yeah,
New York in
yeah.
mid-50s. So they had sections of like, life and death and marriage and family.
Yeah.
I think mostly, black and white documentary
Yeah, I think it was
photography.
all black and white.
What's interesting about this expo though, is that 3 years later, there was Asia's first exposition in Osaka, Japan. And I grew up in Osaka, and everything took place in my backyard.
Oh.
So it's not that I remember as a toddler, things, exhibited in Osaka exposition, but I knew later, architects like Kenzo Tange, who was a master architect for entire Osaka Expo, artist Taro Okamoto, who did at Sun Tower, they all went to, Montreal exposition and study, how the world is presented as a multimedia subject. So there's a really close relationship between, Montreal and Osaka expositions.
Yeah, one thing at the Expo 67, I remember the Japanese pavilion was the coolest pavilion because it had a sunken living room, just like John Lennon's bedroom in the movie Help. So it was the coolest thing. So.
Okay, I didn't know that about,
yeah,
so it's good to know. But maybe we can talk about your street picture you shot, only 8 years later in Montreal. So tell us, where did you start? How did you start photography, and what was the first subject, maybe?
So the first subject were the flowers in my neighbor's garden when I was 8 or 9, and again I had that that Brownie camera, and again I had no idea what I was doing, but it was an older couple that lived, much older obviously than me, that lived there, and the gentleman knew something about photography and would, tell me a few little things, a few pointers about light, like don't point the camera at the sun, those kind of things. And so, it started very clumsily, and then after Expo, I kind of had a more serious interest. There was a photography club at my high school. I learned a bit about, darkroom techniques. I was never very strong in that department. The technological part of photography really did not interest me. Even light meters still confound me. But what interested me was what was inside the frame, and being able to capture. I wasn't all that interested in studio work. I admire people who, flourish in a studio environment. I admired Ansel Adams, but I knew that great, landscape photography with, giant cameras, that was not for me. I liked the, shoot and run of
snapshot. Yes.
Well, snapshot. It sounds like sort of Sunday at the beach with the relatives and everything. But the shoot and run of street photography. And of obviously Cartier-Bresson was a big influence. Robert Capa, who obviously has this controversy around him, but bottom line, he was a great photographer. People like Leonard Freed, and I even Ed Ruscha is, it was kind of an influence, and
yes.
So.
Well, you were kind of contemporary to Ruscha in a way, no? Because this picture comes from mid '70s. So let's talk about this one.
Yeah. So this one. So this is 1975, and by then I was in university. I was taking a course in the dynamics of visual representation by this professor. Denny Deniakopoulos, who was a commercial photographer. But by that time, I had a Minolta SLR, and a lot of people had other kind of complicated cameras. And this professor just said, toss those cameras. Here's an Olympus 35 RD, I think it was called. Autofocus, auto exposure with a fantastic lens. And he says, I don't want you to thinking about, F1, F2, or any of that stuff. I just want you to look at your composition. And he sent us out with that camera. And so I was doing street photography, and this family group kind of walked into my frame, and as a personal aside, I kind of immediately said, "Oh, I know this group." With the little kid, his older brother, and all dressed the same. And I thought, "Oh, this is
Just like me.
This is just like my brother,
Yeah.
and me, the baby. My older brother had, for the first 4 years was the apple of my parents' eye. He had the whole field to himself, and then I came along, and and suddenly I was the apple of my parents' eye, and my brother was not terribly happy, and I could sort of identify these two. Obviously the mother, just like my mother, tried to dress them alike, and she probably gave them each the same toys, but it wasn't enough. It certainly wasn't enough for my brother. So even, in the as I call it, the emotional stability sweepstakes, having the baby of the family held close is no match to like being dragged along like an annoying pet. So and just the look that kid gives his younger brother is just, that kid better be careful not turn his back to his brother too. But anyways, it was, I just sensed this, this dynamic was very recognizable to me.
And also,
and I took the picture, so that,
compositional sort of like triangular shape.
yeah,
right?
and
I think
also
that definitely gives a kind of stability
Yeah.
as a composition. So it's a beautiful picture.
and just the stuff that goes on behind the mother's back.
Yeah, I think about like a picture by Winogrand, for example, right?
Is what?
Gary Winogrand.
Oh, yeah, yes.
certainly. So, but we have many pictures to talk about. So,
so let's
we're
go
gonna
on.
actually hit and go.
Yes.
So, I think there are like 7 sections in this book.
Could be.
Yeah, and there are 6 essays, including one by Xu Bin. So
Yes.
great essays. I had a pleasure to read all of them. First section starts with mysteries and dangers. Why did you start your book with the mysteries and dangers pictures?
Well, because a lot of the photographs have kind of implied narratives, and some of them are a little creepy, or there's an implied creepiness.
Right.
And the book is called Seeing As. It's sort of inspired by Ludwig Wittgenstein's essay of aspect perception. And ultimately, I believe that what a picture is about is ultimately in the hands of the audience. And the
But there's certainly
photographs,
kind of sense of kind of crime. What's happening in this? There's a mystery to it.
there's a mystery, and this is the earliest photograph that's in the book, and I took it in 1968, and it's, as it says, Washington D.C., and it's the Greyhound bus depot, and this soldier, I was hanging out the window looking, and he walked in, and the composition just fell into place. And in this photograph, I learned the value of a dirty frame, with this obstruction in it that lends it kind of a real sniper feel.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah,
Yeah.
sniper feel. Yeah. What do you mean by saying sniper feel?
Well, just because you feel that the point of view is from someone who's hidden and
Right.
observing, and the dirty frame kind of
Yeah.
helps that.
Did you have any chance that the people you photographed, kind of looked at you and then
No,
give
he had
you a dirty look.
no.
What are you doing? Okay. All right.
I dreaded that, but it's
Yeah.
because I'm
Well,
kind of socially inadequate, as and just there's always been an issue about taking photographs of people without their permission.
right. Yes.
Um,
But I guess in 70s, I guess no one really cared about that. No?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not good. But I
yeah,
think
well, it
that's
depends which country you were in.
how it was.
Yeah, yeah.
I think actually, these days, this entire genre of street photography is at the risk, right?
Yeah.
If you have to get an okay from everyone you photograph, then there's no genre, there's no meaning
Right.
why you photograph in the street, right?
Yes.
This is another one. You shot it in Seville,
Yeah,
in Spain.
Spain in '74.
Why you photograph this man? What prompted you to capture this guy?
Because he looked so louche. I think he's probably a taxi driver, but he just looked, and also he was paying attention to me, and I don't think he liked being photographed. And at the last second I saw the sort of Alfred Hitchcock figure over there. It just
shadow.
looked like something was going to happen. Maybe nothing. Maybe his lunch was going to arrive or something. But and also the sense of self-regard that he had with the glasses, the sideburns, the hat. He worked his look with the muscle car, which is kind of strange to find an American muscle car in Seville, Spain in '74. But, this was Franco's Spain.
Yeah.
And everything looked a little suspicious. So this
Right.
guy, who knows what his, but he looked.
I mean, when you shot though,
Yeah.
did you see the shadow? Did you see the mystery person hidden?
Yeah, I saw.
Behind-
I saw.
So you know what was happening in
Yeah, at the very-
totality.
yeah.
Okay.
I was looking at him, and then the main guy, and then I said, "Oh, look what's over there." Yeah.
So what happened to the next picture?
Yeah.
There's a trace of the sunglasses there,
Yeah.
but then there's a hairy legs.
Yes.
Whose legs are they? As a-
it's a friend.
Okay.
Yeah. It's ambiguous, and people can read whatever they want into it,
Yeah.
which I invite.
I think you kind of wanted to leave the interpretation part to people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the photographs have as I said, like an implied narrative. Either something has happened or something is about to happen.
Right.
But what that is up to the viewer. To the
So
I don't
what
know if
has
viewer and audience sounds like TV kind of lingo, but
Yeah.
whoever's looking at the photograph.
So what do you want people who look at this picture behind you from Hagi, Japan,
Yeah.
to make out of it?
Again, it's
It's a strange picture.
Yeah, you have to think who left that glove there. Why did
Yeah.
they? It does look like it's flipping off everybody. But you see, the thing about Japan is that I don't know who it is. The Department of Tourism has gone around Japan and set out. Here's a good place to take a picture. Here's another good place to take a picture. And you walk around Japan and you see, oh, there's 100 people there taking pictures of the same thing. And that's why everybody goes to Japan, comes back with the same photographs.
Yeah, I think that's maybe
Yeah.
true. Even like in 50s,
Yeah.
in downtown Tokyo, multiple photographers like Ishimoto Yasuhiro, other whoever, they shot like a same, kind of broken
Right.
part of the architecture or the movie poster or something. So
Yeah.
I think that's Japan is a very photogenic country.
Well, this is why I have a couple of photographers that I've been not compared to, but say, oh, your work's a bit like. And these are photographers I was absolutely not aware of until somebody said, oh, your work looks a little bit like that. And one of them was Genpai Akasegawa
Yes.
with his Thomasons, and he takes photographs in Japan of things no Japanese would ever take photographs, and a lot of the photographs I take are of things no one else would take photographs of.
Akasegawa, was one of the high-rate center, right? I mean, just a world expert in this audience, by the way.
Yes.
However, so
Raiko
he
told
took
me, yeah.
he took a photograph of like a kind of urban space.
Yes.
Or architectural space.
Yes.
Basically, which there's no use for it.
Yes.
It's nonsense. Why he took photograph of no space after
Well,
all.
he coined a term for those kind of things. He called them Thomasons, and Thomason was a very high-priced baseball player that was hired by a Japanese team, and he came, and for some reason they never played him, and he just sat on the bench
That's
the whole
right. Yes.
season. Kind of an expensive, kind of useless thing that was there. And so he started, the photographer started naming doors that serve no purpose. Oh, that's a Thomason. So.
Yeah, it's one of the heights of the Japanese conceptualism.
Yeah.
But then you also, photographed I think a bunch of pictures I've seen in this book, dolls. What's this place all about?
Well, there's a couple of doll hospitals, one
Okay.
in Lisbon, another one in Naples, and where they fix dolls that lost their arm. But I think what's wrong with these dolls is that it's a psychiatric hospital for dolls, because this doll looks like it's been severely abused. It's got this very tentative look, and its hands are pointing at where the boo-boo is, and it's just very disturbing.
Yeah.
So.
And then you move on to Australia. So
Yeah.
what is this?
So this was, it's just this stone sitting on a bench. I have no idea how it's there behind this grill. And it was kind of my impression of the town of Feldkirch and of Austria. Just
Yeah, it looks
there
like
it is. You can figure it out.
very kind of confined,
Yeah.
controlled environment, huh? I mean, it's
Yes.
good that we are not on the other side of the fence. Yeah, and then this is another one. I found it very peculiar. What were you looking at?
Well, first of all, there's the olive tree, and the texture of it is, pretty impressive. But then I saw this lizard just there,
Yeah.
next to the branch,
Yeah, it's hard to see. Yeah.
that's well camouflaged.
Well, I think this section has a just kind of whole range of pictures, right? Not everything is mystery in a sense. The first picture from Washington D.C. was a kind of murder mystery or something, crime mystery.
Well, yeah, with its association with Vietnam, sure,
Yeah,
why not?
but this is not of that
Well,
kind.
there's a series of pictures of animals kind of hiding or
Right.
about to hide,
Yeah.
running away from me. I don't know, but
Well, I mean, interesting. Actually, from there, your book will take you to north.
yeah, to the Canadian.
Canadian north.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just maybe tell us a little bit about your experience, in Canadian north.
So there's two kinds of experience I've had up in the north. In Canada, I don't know if it's still true today, but when I was young, the north is where you would go for summer jobs, and you get paid very well. And the further north, the better. And so I ended up in communities that I wouldn't normally have gone to, and interacting and living among the indigenous people who lived there. And the other project we've been doing more recently is my wife Carolyn and I have brought Chinese artists up to the north to do art residencies with local Inuit artists. And quite far up north,
Yeah.
inside the Arctic Circle.
You've gone back to certain communities,
A few times,
over
yeah.
the years.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
do you actually strike out some relationship? Do you get to know people
Yes,
by visiting?
yes. Usually by the second time you go, then they know, okay, you weren't just a tourist, and then the relationship becomes deeper very quickly.
So tell me about this picture, Fort Simpson, Canada, 1975.
So this was a place where I was working uh, for the summer, and it's mostly uh, the Dene people who live there, and it's a community that was created by the Canadian government in its great wisdom, where they took people who were living in small family groups um, on the mainland, and then put them on this island all together because it was easier to hand out the welfare checks and everything. And of course, they had nothing to heat themselves except trees. And on the island, well, the trees disappeared rather quickly, and then they would have to travel quite far to get firewood. But so I was just taking the picture of the church and the yellow building against this menacing sky, and then this kid, sort of appeared from behind the telephone pole, and we played a little kind of peekaboo for a little bit, and then he allowed himself to be photographed pointing at the church, and anyone who has been reading about indigenous people in the last few years knows about the role of the church in the residential schools, and how they literally beat the Indian out of these kids and abused them. And in '75, this kid would have gone to a residential school. So
So, after, bit of peekaboo, I think once he pointed out, then you felt, you're okay to photograph him.
yeah, well, I was trying to take a photograph,
Yeah.
with
Yeah. But you had a
you know,
kind of, unspoken dialogue with him in a way.
yeah, and he allowed me to take his photograph.
Tell us actually, when did you start shooting in color, by the way?
Um, with Kodachrome, I started probably like 72, 73.
That's pretty
Because,
early.
yeah, it was, it also was expensive to shoot
Right.
with Kodachrome. But, a lot of these is just a little technical thing, but a lot of, all the analog pictures that I've taken were all scanned, and Kodachrome has held its color. It's unbelievable stuff.
Yeah. What motivates you to shift from black and white to color? It's not like you left black and white completely.
No.
You kept both, correct?
Yeah. I see in color, so it's
Yeah.
color is its own language.
It picks a lot more detail, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it may lose sort of like a, artistic, abstraction, in photography. No?
Yeah, it depends. I think it has its, again, like I said, it has its own language. It can be abstract and obviously artistic. That's not a,
Who are you looking at in terms of sort of like artists who are using photography, color film at that
Well,
time?
that's interesting. All the
anyone?
people who are, that I think of
Yeah.
as influences all shot in black and white.
Yeah.
And
Actually, interesting. One of my last things I've done at the Tate Modern was, display of Joel Merowitz's photographs.
Right.
It's up now in London, but Joel did actually a series called A Question of Color.
yeah,
He had two cameras, one with a black and white film, the
Yeah.
other with a color.
right.
And he started in '67, and he just kind of walk around, and he used two cameras and then shoot the same place almost simultaneously.
Yeah.
And he compare them. So we show, I think, maybe 20 pairs. And I think after that, Joel never went back to black and white.
Yeah.
So
Well, you look at a photographer like Michael Wolff, who
Yes.
does these, these buildings in Hong Kong, and it's all about the color. It just would not work.
Yeah, much later. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But you were early. I mean,
Well,
I mean,
I
you
don't
were a
know.
picture from Washington D.C. That's a color picture,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
1968. So I
Yeah.
was just curious.
But today, like Ann Collier, I really like the way she uses colors. She's a local artist here.
Sure, and Korea.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yes, yeah, yeah. And you can get,
Yeah.
especially if you use Ilford or Agfa film. There's a kind of pastel
Yeah.
quality that you can get that's really interesting.
Look at
So-
this. So tell me
Yeah,
what's
so
happening in this.
speaking of,
You shot at the same location. It's like a question of color, isn't it? What's
Well, it's
happening?
also a question of snow.
Yeah.
Snow hides a lot of
Yeah.
sins. Um,
So you told me that the two pictures are shot only, maybe month or 2 months apart.
About 30 days. This was July and this was August, up in Fort Simpson. It's
But for the snow day, you choose to shoot in the black and white.
yeah, because it was already the color had kind of disappeared. The thing about being up in a place like this, once you're out of something,
Yeah.
you can't just go to the drugstore and buy another one. So once you're out of Kodachrome up there, that's it until you fly 1,000 miles south to where you can buy some more.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about this one? This is a little later, 2016. So
yeah,
tell us what's happening.
2016. So this is resolute in English speak, but it's Kwasiutuk in Inuktitut, and this is one of the most northern communities, and I find the ice fog. It's also a season when I took this pictures when polar bears sort of appear out of nowhere. There was just something a little ominous about that fog and this boat kind of abandoned by the seashore. It's also the history of Resolute. Again, the Canadian government in the 50s decided to move people from northern, move family groups of Inuit people from northern Quebec up into the far north in order to assert its territorial claims. This was during the Cold War, and basically abandoned Inuit family groups on the shore. As you can see, it's all gravel, and basically left them there just as winter broke, and without food or adequate supplies, and a lot of them starved. They ended up like eating seagull feathers to survive, and I think that's kind of that picture. So.
Well, I mean, one picture, tells, so much, history and also, narrative stories,
Yeah.
right? How
But
would you?
there's this thing of photography. A lot of it is
Yeah.
journalistic, but at some point it
Yeah.
flops into something more. And I think this picture, I think the emotion of this picture is right, and regardless of whether you know the story or not.
Yeah. So how do you convey the complexity, of the stories? I mean, I guess you don't write about the picture you shoot, do you?
Well, no, it's like in the book. There's there's some footnotes at the back, but I
Okay.
didn't want to put them next to the photograph.
Got it.
I just want the photograph to speak for itself, and
Okay.
and I think you might get a feeling of desolation, of abandonment from this
Yeah.
photograph.
So this book does, tell you stories, behind
Some,
the picture,
Yeah,
in the
there's
footnote
there's not
part.
500 stories. There's
Yeah.
about maybe 20 footnotes on.
How long did it take you to make this book, by the way? I mean, let alone the years you've photographed, I mean, to make this book.
Probably about 2 years. I had tremendous technical help from a gentleman named Frank Rocco, who's here.
Okay.
Who, we tried to and I certainly tried to Photoshop as little as possible, and but just to get it up to the standards you need to publish it. And again, I'm a klutz to that kind of stuff, but Frank is a true artist. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great book. Let's
A lot of it is hats off to Frank.
I think you did mention about this book. I think this picture.
Yeah.
There's quite deep story behind it. Right?
Yeah, it's you see the kid who's in this whose cross this is, and obviously he looks like a young teenager. Early death is kind of endemic in the indigenous communities of certainly of northern Canada, mostly from suicide. Some by drugs and alcohol, but mostly suicides. So that kind of speaks to that. And ice. So ice is obviously very important to the Inuit. Without ice, they can't hunt. And so, anyways, and they have many ways of describing ice.
Yeah, I mean it's a way you also show three pictures in a sort of like a fold out, right?
Yeah.
It's nicely structured to show three of them together in the book.
And the textures,
Yeah, and this one, it's actually the picture you use for cover or back.
The back cover.
Yeah, Balcer, right?
Yeah.
So what is this?
Well, that's a bone against the backdrop of the vegetation in the Arctic and these berries, and it's very pretty lichens and all this, and then this bone. It's I guess it speaks to the harsh life and death reality up there.
Yes. You also, that's a very abstracted way to reveal the harshness of life, right? But this one, you look at the kind of built environment.
Yes, and and the background are these stunning mountains, and then the foreground is where the people actually live, and this is someone's house, and this is supposed to get them through the winter at 50 degrees below zero.
Did the people come out of their houses sometimes? Because you took a photograph of many houses like this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you go about it? I mean, do you?
Well, I just take a picture of the house, and and the people there are, they were super friendly, very curious. It's like a small town. They come up to you. It's what are you doing? And why are you taking? Why are you taking pictures? And they're not asking it suspiciously. They're just interested.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think it's good because you go back to certain communities, so they know you. You know, so you build a relationship. This is a great picture. I love this one. Yeah.
Yeah, these. It's in a highly technological world where the kids in the South have all kinds of toys. These two little girls are just playing with snow, as simple as that, and they're incredibly delighted with it. These little angels.
You're very good at taking pictures of children. I mean, what's the secret? What is it? I mean, you can relate to them. I mean, they seems to be, not fearful. Or they seems to be open.
Yeah, well, that's...
Anything you do special? No?
Don't do anything to scare them. That would be the first thing.
Okay.
And, they're open, you be open, and, don't try and sneak around and take pictures and just, they're...
Well, then, you also photographed numerous protesters, not just, in 2020. I think you've done it, historically. But tell us about this body of work, BLM,
Yeah,
Black
well,
Lives Matter
so my wife and
2020.
I live about 2 blocks away where from where this happened. This is, just sort of near Trump Plaza. So our neighborhood was very busy that summer. Um, and I just thought it was important to get out there with a camera. And, I didn't know what was going to happen, and nobody knew what was going to happen, but it was important to have people there to document it. And I think that, George Floyd's murder was proof that somebody, has to be there to document these interactions with the police, because
There's a little humor in this picture, though.
yeah, well, you have the guy with his little hand, his little fist, and then you have the other side, the power, and with
Hand.
the big hand, which looks a little bit like a Monty Python
Yeah.
kind of
Try
hand
to-
that zips around and
pick up
points.
something.
Yeah, it comes and
Yeah.
points at you.
Yeah. And here.
Yeah. So this is at Columbus Circle protesting the Columbus statue, and I just thought they were just cool looking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the red skeleton jaw mask. But yeah.
And you also were in Richmond, Virginia.
So Richmond, yeah. The famous Lee statue. This one, going, going, gone, bye. And this lady, she was not from Richmond. She and her husband had come from outside Richmond to have their picture taken in front of one of the greatest pieces of public art in America, which unfortunately has been disassembled. But I think her T-shirt says a lot, and these are all memorials to people who've died in controversial interactions with the police. Yeah.
How do you? I mean, I'm sure you shot. You made numerous images.
Yeah.
Around the statue, right?
Yeah.
And how do you choose? 3 are the final. I mean, do you go through this editing process quite rigorously?
Well, yeah, but I think what was important for me is that there are people there interacting with what's there.
Right. So that's your focus.
Yeah.
And then this is also pretty powerful image you shot.
Yeah, this was a Sunday morning, and this gentleman was walking taking his baby out for a ride. I didn't notice until I saw him on the other. He was actually, unfortunately, you can't see it. He was packing a handgun on his hip. This is kind of a bit of a dicey neighborhood in Richmond, so he was, and this was obviously a few weeks after the protests in Richmond, and he felt the need, especially with his child there, to have some protection with him. But again, very friendly. I had very friendly interactions with him, and
Yeah.
it was a very hot day. So
I mean, it seems to me though. I mean, your snapshot or your casual photographs, street pictures you shoot, I think in a very nuanced way, you're trying to make a point why you're making the photograph of. So there's a sort of like your view on society in general. I mean, yeah. That's the kind of impression I have by flipping through 500 pages. I guess there's a sense of like a social justice maybe you wanted to maybe reveal in your photographic work as well. I wonder. my question to you.
Well, I've always been interested in that aspect of photography and of being a witness, and I think part of the responsibility of artists is to be a true witness to your times, because uh, and I said this in a lecture at the Central Academy of Fine Arts in Beijing, and I was surprised they didn't throw me out right away. But I said, the first things that dictators do is they erase history.
Of course.
And
Yes.
and I said the duty of artists, whether we're performers or painters, musicians, whatever we do, is to record a true, or to document, witness a true record of history. So for future generations, so they know what actually happened. So and that's one of the responsibilities of artists.
So one of the objectives, when you were in China, you made a lots of photographs. So
Yes.
So that was part of the reason.
No, China's a place like it's like New York. No matter where you point your camera, there's
Yeah.
always something interesting. And the Chinese have a very special way of doing things that for us seem ordinary. They have a
Could
very
you-
interesting way.
Could you tell us a little bit about actually, when did you start traveling to China, and how did you start?
Well, I started in 1999. This was when Carolyn and I got married, and she's from an old Shanghai family, and she basically grew up in a kind of old Shanghai environment, and so we started going there, 2 or 3 times a year, and we have lots of friends and family, and also artists that we know there.
Tell us about this picture, the first picture you.
Yeah,
you
this is in
choose.
Shanghai. This is songbirds that this is a Shanghai that's kind of disappeared, even though this was 2009. Yeah, you buy one of these songbirds, bring it back to your house, and you let it sing, and quite often, at some point, people will let the bird go, where it's recaptured again by whoever sells these birds and is resold.
What about this? This is actually a bunch of a bust sculpture.
Yeah, so the writing at the back is what they call big character writing, that was used during the Cultural Revolution to denounce professors at Beijing University, and the students would have written this. These busts, they're actually made of like this cheap rubber that you can just take one of these and go like this, but basically every household during the Cultural Revolution was expected to have something like this of Chairman Mao, but obviously, certainly in 2009, nobody really wanted one of those hanging around. So I don't know, they were kind of recycled into condoms or something. I have no idea what they did with them.
Will you ever?
This picture would not be allowed in a photography book in China
Yeah,
today.
probably. But were you ever stopped by like a police, in China? Like, what are you doing? What are you photographing?
No, I have an anecdote, but I can tell it later. But
Okay.
about
right.
that, yeah.
So what happened to this picture? Why did you see that, chair chained?
Why would, of
To the
course, you
pole.
would take a picture of that? It's obviously this is a chair that is used by somebody who has a job to sit there, and either he went on a break he doesn't want his chair stolen.
Yeah. I
His
guess
red chair.
you gave a personality to this chair. I mean,
Yeah.
that looks like a pet.
Yes.
Or bicycle, yeah. You also photograph in a country, right?
Yeah.
Where was this?
This
made?
is in Shidi. This is Anhui province, and there, little donkey, horse, whatever, something, hoping that it doesn't become food at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one too.
So this has 2 images in it. As far as I'm concerned, there's the old ladies speaking confidences, and then there's this here, which is kind of like a Chinese ink painting of a stream, but obviously just made by mold and whatever. But again, that's, seeing as depends. Some people see mold, some people see a beautiful Chinese painting.
And here,
Yeah,
it looks like a funerary procession of some kind.
kind of an illicit funeral procession. This we came across this a funeral procession for this local big shot in town, and it had hundreds of singers and dancers and mourners and everything. And at some point, they were heading to some official cemetery, and at some point they stopped and they kind of muscled this huge coffin onto this truck and then zipped off into the mountains. And this is a sacred mountain. There's grottos at the top with Buddhas. And the big shot obviously didn't want to be buried in an official cemetery. He wanted to be buried on the sacred mountain, and which was forbidden, because in secular China, those kind of things are not allowed. But he got his wish, and his friends kind of pulled him up way into the backwoods there and buried him there. Kind of an act of civil disobedience.
It's a kind of public moment, a private moment of public figure, huh? I
Yeah,
think.
but they're all smiling and kind of
Yeah.
happy to be doing it
Yeah.
for the big boss.
Again,
Yeah.
this is another sort of like a kind of funny picture. It's what is it?
It's tires. I have no idea what purpose it serves. This tire, that tire, kind of stored there in case they might need it. I have no idea.
It's like the beautiful kind of circular drawings.
Yeah, I mean, I like
On
the
the
composition and
canvas
sort
of
of
the
the
sky.
graphic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a beautiful one. And then you also look into kind of sedimentation,
Yeah.
of the kind of city. I've seen a couple of pictures like this by you.
Well, I like decay. I think decay is this wonderful essay in the book by Giora Araoni, who's artist here. And decay to me is like the start of something new. And so there's a whole series of, it's a whole photo essay on decay.
You have one section actually given to decay, as a matter of fact. I'm trying to look at the human pictures here, but before we go to other decay picture,
Yes?
sorry, let's go back. This is decay,
Yeah.
and then this is a strange gate. It's a huge bee.
Yes.
What is
And someone counting his money. He's counting his honey. What can you say? It's China. It's Chinatown, Jake.
Yes. And then going back to the beautiful portrait of the three children.
Yeah, a little sinister because they're kind of strangling their little friend because he was definitely in pain. But they're and it's the most innocent looking one who's actually reaching and kind of giving him a tiger claw around his neck. And this adult here thinks it's all fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
And
beautiful
then-
kids.
Yeah, you also shot many sleepers.
Well, China has a
Wow.
history, as Xu Ping points out in his essay in the book. There's a whole tradition of taking naps. There's poems about taking naps in the afternoon, and so you will see people taking naps
Right. There's
wherever by any means necessary.
one section dedicated to sleepers in China. Yes,
Yeah.
in this book. It's really fun. Look at that. That's also.
Yeah, these
Um,
people have just been through, this is at the Shanghai Museum, and they've just been through a really traumatic experience of going through the Shanghai Museum. They're in despair even. This poor gentleman said, "Oh my God, so many coins I've seen." Oh.
Well, you spend many, months in China photographing,
Yeah.
and then you kind of also go back to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I love actually these pictures. So why don't we just talk about it? Look at that.
Sure.
Yes.
Well,
What you've done?
yeah. So I just, I started noticing obviously the trees in LA. LA is a desert, so none of these trees are native to the area, and they kind of get jammed into the strangest places. They get crowded, and I think they're traumatized trees. So that's as traumatized as the people who live in LA. So
It's a bit of typology too, don't you
yeah.
think? Because you shot many trees. They kind of survived in little spots.
Yeah, in a
in
parking
urban.
lot of the pharmacy in front of the Taco Bell.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few. They really are there at the. They serve at the discretion of the people around it. You have to feel sorry for them.
Do you actually
So
print or make a prints of those pictures? Did you print them and do you?
not yet.
Okay, I think
But
those three pictures are very good.
yeah, all right.
Yes,
The-
it's your way of looking
So,
at LA.
so this one has an unhoused person living among its root system. This tree has been there in the 40 years I've been in LA, and I'm sure it's been there before. And it's obviously well cared for, very well beloved by the community. This unhoused gentleman, lived in the root system and got some privacy there, and also kept the grounds clean. He, is obviously not a beloved member of the community, and not so well kept as the tree that he's living in.
So when
But,
you're in
he
LA,
was,
every time you're in LA, you look for a tree. Or when you see
Yeah.
tree, you just kind of photograph it.
yeah, if
Okay.
it's an interesting tree.
This is an ongoing project.
It's well, it's certainly this first section of this was over 8 years. I've stopped it, and the trees they're kind of disappearing in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're like humans.
Yeah.
They ask for help, right? So they're kind of inviting you to photograph
Yeah.
them. We have human pictures. Then we're gonna open up to the
Yeah.
audience.
This one I have nothing to. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. This,
well, human pictures, right?
so you really like this one?
I really like those pictures
Yeah.
because the picture trees reflected on the pond. This
Yeah.
is a very poetic one.
And the
Shot in
fishing
Thailand.
rods, and no one's around. So
Yeah, I love your picture. Which you have to kind of decipher. Like a trees.
Yeah.
This one too. You look at the 5 trees. I think they're pine trees, maybe.
Yeah.
At the Kyoto Gosho, maybe the
Mhm.
Imperial Palace.
Yeah, people always ask me, well, what is this behind a screen, or how did you take this photograph? And there's a clue in there so that you can figure it out, but I'm not going to tell you.
Another one.
Huh?
Look, this one's harder actually.
Yeah. So
Because you really have to kind of dig and see hard what's happening.
yeah, this is in Yunnan province in the south, near the up in the terraces. And I don't know what they were trying to cover up there. And in China, they use this kind of weird, filmy plastic, green plastic thing that kind of really wraps itself around, whatever boxes or something, and it's almost an organic material. I just think I don't know what they were trying to cover up here.
Maybe
or-
vegetables. I mean,
I have no idea. I
looks
didn't.
something organic.
Maybe there's boxes there,
Yeah.
or somebody just dumped this over the side, but it's kind of creepy.
You know, you said actually, in your essay, I think, or someone's writing, quoting you, for you, photography is like a window,
Yeah,
with which you really zoom into unknown world.
right.
So I thought this is a great picture to end your, talk on your
Yeah.
work. Tell us about this work.
So this is in Uruguay, and it's just it was just a window with the curtains were blowing open and closed, and I was just wondering, I wonder what's going on inside there, because it was a hot day and it was kind of, it invites questions, and there could be some illicit affair going on
Yeah.
or nothing, but it's just the suggestion. Again, it's the implied narrative.
Sure. And you may see yourself actually reflected on the windows.
Yeah.